welcome back again to Ken Tamplin Vocal Academy, where the proof continues to be in the singing. And welcome. This is a Wednesday edition. This is actually going to be the last time I'll be broadcasting to you guys live from San Miguel de Allende, Mexico. I'm going to be heading back to the States on Saturday. So I won't have a live stream this Saturday. I'm going to try to do it next Wednesday if possible. It might be not enough time, I'm not sure, but for certain I will resume 1 week from this Saturday. And I just wanted to say thank you for everybody that is from all over the world. I know we have some crazy shout outs, from everywhere. But I'm gonna stay more focused at the moment on a couple of things, which is this very, very important topic. But I do have a couple of residual questions from the last session, and I want to get to those first. So without further ado, let me go ahead and do that now. I'm just going to go through three of them, and I'm not going to get to all of them, guys, because there were so many of them, and I'm doing the best I can. But we have 10 Neon 777. Hey, Ken, what's up? Excited to see you live. Please do it often. Fans like me want to interact with you. It wasn't actually a question, but okay. I will do it the best I can. Mike, I really like singing, but I don't have the voice. What can I do? Is there any hope for me? Well, actually, I didn't really have the voice either, and I'm not sure what the voice is, and everyone's frame of reference of what the voice is different. So why don't you post something in our singers forums? Let us take a listen and see if there's a way we can direct you and give you good quality, qualified information. So Kelly recently was singing and was belting, and I felt something I've never felt before. It's almost like I braced myself on the ground and pushed my feet up through my diaphragm. Sounds kind of painful. I'm not sure what you mean by that. If you're saying that there is something called grounding, I'm not a big fan of that because I'm more of a fan of just good abdominal support itself. But I understand that through the transverse abdominal muscle and through the abdomen, out through the back, down through the sciatica and through the legs, that people experience a lot of strength in the abdomen when they do that. I just use it old school, where I don't feel like I have to stand in some sort of stance and push myself onto the ground and whatever. Like I said, it's called grounding. So if that worked for you, that's cool. It'd still be good to take a listen to you and see and make sure that you're doing something right, because it might be hard to get back to that same nirvanic state that you're in when you're singing like that. One extra question, and then I'm just going to go straight into this, guys. So Nikolai, how does one approach the second passagio if bridging mixing into head voice mix doesn't suit the piece of music? Actually, that's a really, really good question, Nikolai, because you should be able to kind of sing at every level or every volume, let's say, or different levels of volumes. And there's two parts to this. I know there's always two parts or three parts, but I want to get to laying this out simply so that it's not complicated. We have when I used to program drums, for example, okay, and I'm really good at that. By the way, I play on all my music that I do almost all the instruments with few exceptions, and there is a levels which from 0 to 127 of different degrees of volume that you can program a drum sample when you go to hit something. Well, kind of like the voice. You should be able to sing like, hey, 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 and get, kind of louder and louder on the sound. By the way, it's really early here. I'm not that warmed up, but I didn't sleep that great last night. You guys ever have that problem? Anyway, so I had this flu that I'm still trying to get over, and I'm almost over it. Thank you, Lord. But the first thing you do is you work it up really lightly and gently, no matter what, period, any piece. You work it up lightly and gently, and then you determine, depending on your voice type, depending on how much you have developed your chest voice range, depending on how much you developed your head voice range, have you brought your head voice back down into your chest voice to be able to connect that, and what expanse of range do you have within the second passagio, so that you can lean into a sound or a certain amount into a sound to give you the freedom to sing a piece. And let me give you a couple of quick examples of that, because I was going to say there's two things. So the quick examples of that is, let's say you're trying to sing a Journey piece, or let's say you're trying to sing a Bruno Mars piece, or let's say you're trying to sing an Adam Lambert piece, or let's say you're trying to sing whatever, like a higher register kind of thing. Start with a head voice first and work through it a lot. And then the more you develop your chest voice and bring your chest voice into it and get that mix between chest and head is like kind of what I showcase for you guys in like Steelheart, She's Gone, for example. If you listen to that, you'll notice that I and when I go through the passagio, the segundo passagio, you can hear me transition, kind of. You can't really hear me because I'm good at it, but you can hear that I do go into a head voice, let's say it that way. And as a baritone, that's very, very difficult to do. Well, it just took me a lot of years of training my chest voice to be strong and get up to a certain level, bring my head voice down into it, so I have a lot of concentric rings, so to speak, or I can fuse that together with a good size expanse of about 7 or 8 notes that go up into that. So, all right, let's we're going to move on here. Thank you for the questions. I didn't get to do shout-outs today, guys, because I want to talk about the subject that's really important. Vocal cord lesions, which are sort of nodules, polyps, and cysts. And this has become really an epidemic right now because there are so many people that are having issues with this and so many people that have surgeries. I want to first talk about what they are. But before I get there, I want you guys to get your brain around something here, okay? And that's this. Within certain disciplines of different vocal methods that are taught, particularly on the internet, is the idea that when you sing, you only have, it's like a fuse that you light, and you only have so much time, and once that time runs out, you're done, and then all of a sudden you're stressing out your chords, and you're in trouble. And it's the only discipline I've ever heard this brought up in. Because let's think about this. We talk all day long. We use our voice all day long. Let's say you're a salesman, or let's say you're on the phone all day, or let's say you're a grocery store checker, or, you use your vocal folds all day. And that doesn't even mean you're doing it right. I just mean we use it all day long. We can stand on our feet all day, if we're a salesman or a checker or this or that, whatever. So let's put some common sense into this, because this is, again, an important way to really look at this. And I'm going to give you some examples in a second. So I've seen within SLS, speech level singing, and I've seen within other, people that have stolen from speech level singing and use this also, that, you shouldn't warm up for more than 30 minutes. And then, if you're lucky, you get an hour of singing and blah, blah, blah. Well, actually, why is that? Why is that the case? If we're warming up correctly, now not just warming up, but if we're warming up correctly, why do we only get 30 minutes to warm up and an hour to sing if we're lucky, and then it's all downhill from there? Well, I was kind of told that really early on by some really well-known coaches. One claimed to teach Michael Jackson, and I don't want to go into who it is. But I thought to myself, well, if the voice is a muscle, it's actually a group of muscles, then why can't I safely grow that group of muscles in a way that allows me to sing for long periods of time? Now, this was way back in like 1981, 82 that I was asking these questions. So this has been a long time ago, and I've pushed the pedal to the metal, and I've really tested this to extremes to see if this is true or not. So what I did was, and by the way, you could blow your voice out at a football game or a baseball game. It doesn't mean that you can't hurt yourself, but if you're doing this correctly, you should be able to do this. So I started to research some stuff. And I found out that, Pavarotti, I found out that Placido Domingo, Caruso, all these different fantastic singers, opera singers, that they actually warm up for 60 to 90 minutes before they go in and sing a 2-hour aria. And sometimes they even do a cool down after that. And when they're training, they could sing up to 5, 6, 7, 8 hours a day, usually 4 to 6, every day, 5, 6 days a week. And I thought, well, how are they able to do this without getting, nodes and this and that? And it doesn't mean that makes you immune from getting a cyst or a node. And I want to discuss what a cyst and a node and a polyp and all this stuff is in a minute, but and how to differentiate them and then how we can overcome them, and do we go to surgery and all that. But the point is that when I started to realize that, hey, that's right. Like an athlete would train for X amount of hours if he or she is doing something. Why is it that in the world of singing, we're only allowed this short fuse, so to speak, to sing? Well, I realized that that actually wasn't true. And the more that I trained correctly, and I say correctly, not just singing, the more I learned that I could sing for hours on end. In fact, as you know, I have like I think 40 records out. It's a lot of records. Go on Wikipedia, look up Ken Tamplin, look at all the records I've done. And I would do these. In the '80s, I loved bands like Def Leppard, for example, or Bon Jovi, or whomever. And I got to know some of the audio engineers that worked on the records and how they got the sounds that they got. And come to find out, way back then, not now, not a new revelation. This was back in the early '80s or mid '80s, excuse me. That they would sing hundreds of tracks of vocals. I'm not kidding, literally. So I have this album out called Magdalene, and I've got a couple bands like Shout and some of my solo stuff, where I would literally go in the studio. I'd get in at 8 or 9 in the morning, and I'd warm up. I'd warm up for an hour, and then I would sing 80, 100, 120, 150 tracks of vocals. I'm not kidding you. And it would take 4, 5, 6 hours to do this. And I'm not talking light stuff. I'm talking throw down, heavy, hard stuff. Well, now there were times when I didn't warm up correctly, and it cost me. The next day I felt really sore, and my throat felt sore, and this, that, whatever. Whenever I did warm up correctly, and Ken, what is warm up correctly? Again, guys, I'm sorry. It's in my course, How to Sing Better Than Anyone Else. Go to kentamplinvocalacademy.com, check out the course, or if you can't afford it, look at the tutorials I have on YouTube. I spell a lot of it out there, though I can't go into we have 50 hours, I think, of training in my course. So there's no way I can, and it's also in succession. You don't want to just pick and choose one little thing and try to put the pieces together. You actually want to do it in succinctly in an order. But anyway, so as I would do, sing all these tracks, and if you listen to some of my big Bon Jovi like kind of chorus stuff, I'm not only singing 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100, 110, 20, 30, 40, 50 tracks, like crazy stuff. But I'm doing it in different timbres. I'm doing it in different layers. I'm doing it with different approaches to singing. I'm adding air in some, and I'm getting really bright in others. I'm kind of deliberately putting some of them out of pitch, so it sounds more like a gang vocal. Like I'm going through this whole gamut of all kinds of different ways to do this. But I never lost my voice. That's the point, right? So I want to go in now to discussing exactly what is vocal cord lesions, what are nodules, polyps, and cysts. So here we go. Vocal cord lesions are benign growths, we pray, that are something that we don't have a cancerous growth on our throat. And they can include, so this is a subcategory, nodules, polyps, and cysts. Now, vocal trauma or overuse is associated with cord lesions and vocal cord nodules. Well, okay, so we just talked about that, but it just depends on how you've strengthened your vocal cords to get through this. Well, let's start off with what are vocal cord lesions. Let's just go there for a minute. Vocal cord lesions, also known as fold lesions or vocal folds lesions, with their benign non-cancerous growths that include nodules, polyps, and cysts, and all can cause hoarseness, and are typically associated with overuse or vocal cord trauma. So let's say you're a bartender, or let's say you're a waitress, and you have to serve food and stuff over live music, and you're talking all night. You can get it from that. It's just part of your job. You knew the job was dangerous when you took it, and that's just what it is. Vocal cord nodules. Oh, and I want to put a picture in your mind. Okay, polyps, cysts. I want to put that over there. Nodules are like, no, Jules, no, Jules. So remember that the word nodules and polyps are different, and cysts are different. So when you get a nodule, it means you're kind of in trouble. You're really screwed up. And when I was a guitar player, I still am, way back when I got a callus on my finger, it was cool because it allowed me to play for a lot more hours. If you get that on your vocal folds, you're in big trouble, because then you have to find a way to get the moisture and resiliency back in that. Hopefully it's not big enough, so big that you lose phonation or sound, And then it could even mean surgery, but we're going to talk about that because it doesn't always mean surgery. It just means nodules. Remember that. So nodules, like have that in your mind, okay? So because polyps, getting a cyst or getting a blister on your cords, man, that happens throughout your life a lot. If you're, again, yelling at a football game or you're clapping for your kid at a performance or something, and you get a lesion, and then also we're going to talk about what's happened with Adele, having she has in her folds, she broke a blood vessel twice now, and she's had surgery twice now. I'm going to discuss some of this here in a minute. Okay, so let's move on. So these callus-like growths develop at the midpoint of the vocal folds. Now, my assistant Bob, he's not online today. I'm not sure. I hope he's okay because we were supposed to do this together. But I asked him to post a page just so you could just take a peek at what that means. So what it means is that as your vocal folds kind of close down, it means usually on one side, not both sides, but on one side, it actually has a callus-like growth at the midpoint of the center of the vocal folds themselves. We're going to discuss how you can determine if you have them or not, and if you should be concerned, okay? And that's up down the road here for a minute. Vocal cord nodules look like small calluses under a microscope, and you can endoscopically have someone go strobe you and look inside your vocal folds, and they can actually take pictures of this. I'm going to talk more about that later because not all strobes are created equal. There's a lot of different equipment out there, and some can miss certain things, even down to blisters or like what happened with Adele and having a blood vessel pop within the cord itself. But anyway, so vocal cord nodules are like calluses. And in the microscope, we can see these abnormal blood vessels. Now, predominantly women, for whatever reason, and it's probably because their cords are about half the size of men, between the ages of like 20 and 50, are more prone or susceptible to vocal cord nodules. But both men and women can be affected, but women, for some reason, get it more, and it could also be because of the use of air, the overuse of air that they use. Now, when I say that, remember we talked about how the soprano voice was sacrificed at the altar, or I should say, excuse me, the chest voice was sacrificed at the altar of the soprano voice to hit the high note. We've talked about this in a previous session. What has happened is that a lot of people have, a lot of women, excuse me, use a lot of air when they sing up top to get to that high note, and it's remember I've told you this before that the overuse of air is the arch enemy to the vocal folds. I suspect, no one knows this for certain, but I suspect that it's because of how much air that they use when they're up top, and they haven't learned how to compress the air at a lower range first, and then compress that air all the way up through their upper soprano register. But anyway, that's my own personal thing. Vocal cord polyps are different from nodules because they can occur, now again, remember, nodes, remember that, just keep that in your mind. So a polyp and a node, they're different. So anyway, vocal cord polyps are different from nodules because they can occur on either of the folds, okay? So they can go on either side. So one is only on one side. The polyps can actually happen, blisters and polyps can happen on both sides of the folds. Now, they tend to be more vasculated than nodules. So vasculated is like a fancy word for just saying your veins, popping out. So you can have this anomaly, this interruption, so to speak, because you pop the blood vessel, or the vessels themselves couldn't sustain the hit of all of the air that you're hitting the vocal folds with. And they usually kind of turn first kind of bluish reddish in color, and you can bluish as in when you're microscopically looking at them, but it becomes reddish in color. And they vary in size and shape, but are usually larger than nodules, and they kind of look like a blister. Okay. Again, if you're a strobe, you'll know what I'm talking about. I've seen 1,000 strobes, probably more in my life. Like vocal cord nodules, polyps can be caused by overuse and misuse of the voice, but it can also be caused by an episode of vocal abuse, such as, like I said, yelling at a sports event. But there are also other things, and there's Rinke's vocal edema. If you want to look up that book, it's really a great book because it smoking, alcohol, sinusitis, allergies, hypothyroidism, screaming at cheerleading events, whatever. There's all kinds of things that can cause this. And one of the biggest ones, and hopefully we'll get a chance to go into this, and Matt, if you can remind me of this, I want to, if I can remember to do this, and if there's time, I want to talk about acid reflux and also silent reflux, and not just GERD, but silent reflux, because this plays a tremendous role in acid coming up. Remember, guys, we had a session, we talked about how the vocal box itself, the vocal folds box itself, or your larynx, let's just call it what it is, was created, its first, let's say, creation for that was to mitigate either air or food going down the windpipe / or the esophagus. And its second function was phonation or speaking or singing. So way down in that food chain, it can only handle a certain amount of acid that comes from the stomach. So if you eat a lot of spicy food, or if you smoke, or if you drink a lot of alcohol, or if you do certain things, once it passes that protection, let's call it, which is the larynx, and it goes on in and actually hits the vocal folds themselves. The vocal folds weren't created to sustain that kind of impact. We discussed this. I have a video out on vocal nodules. I've got a video out on acid reflux. If you guys want on YouTube, go to it and check that out if you have, if you're susceptible to that. So really, and I give some really good information that I don't want to get bogged down and preoccupied discussing that when I want to get to, the rest of this session here. But anyway, so vocal cord cysts. Vocal cord cysts are growths that have a sac of fluid around them. It's kind of semi-solid in the center. Now let's remember one thing. What are vocal folds? You guys remember I was talking about this? It's hundreds and hundreds of sinews of collagen that come together like strands like this on both sides of the folds, and they're very fragile, but they're also pretty resilient when it comes to healing, if you know how to do this right. But anyway, so and then there's a mucus retention that happens. There's something called mucosa. We talked about that before. But anyway, there's a mucus retention that happens within the cyst itself. Now, it's a bummer, but it's not the end of the world if you get a cyst and it pops and you lose your voice for a little while, and you might even get laryngitis or something else, because we can grow that back. We can get that back. It's not the end of the world. Why I said nodules? Because when that happens with a full-on nodule, polyps are different. We're going back and forth between this. It means that it's hardened and calloused like leather. And now we're kind of in trouble because it's stiff and it won't allow the closure to happen until we get phonation. Remember we taking the blade of grass and getting that nice closure to happen? Well, when you have a nodule that's restrictive, and it still doesn't mean you have to have surgery. It just means, is there a way that we can rehabilitate the voice without surgery? And we're going to talk more about this in a second. But anyway, vocal cord lesions are also caused by using the voice when you're sick with respiratory issues and infection or laryngitis. Now, I want to talk to you about that. This is a WebMD quote, and I don't believe it in the same kind of way they quote it. And also the Mayo Clinic says the same thing. When we get sick, if you understand and know how to do this correctly, kids, don't try this at home kind of thing. But when you get sick, and I've toured for 30 some odd years, I know this to be true for a fact, that you can carefully and safely train the voice through cold and flu. And what most coaches tell you is, oh, stop immediately and take 2 weeks off and do this, do that. That's actually really bad advice. And I know I'm flying against the whole medical community when I say this, and guys, don't shoot me over this. And again, if you, I don't claim to be an ENT, and if you go to your local otolaryngologist and ask them their opinion, and then start there, because I'm not going to get in trouble for telling you my experience, but I'm just sharing my experience with you, is that when the cords get thick, when they get when we get sick, we have a respiratory problem. Now, there's a difference between a chest cold and sinusitis, which I've just discussed, that can bring on vocal fold closure issues, that you can clean off the mucus on the cord and still make it through the night and sing. Okay? Really important to understand this. But more so is that if you can stay healthy with the cords and keep them. Remember we talked about cricoarytenoid and all the different cartilage muscle structures that pull the cords together like a rubber band and keep them with mucosa, and glutathione and collagen and all the different things that keep elasticity in the cord. The more we can keep that elasticity in the cord and the more we can keep inflammation down, the faster our recovery. Let me say it again. The more that we can continue to stretch the cord carefully, right? Keep moisture in the cord, reduce inflammation, because it does reduce inflammation when you do that, that the faster our recovery. So when I have been on the road, I'm not kidding. I think in the 30 some odd years, of touring, I don't even remember ever actually canceling a show due to cold or flu. I sang through it. But I prepared myself and I really, really understood how to do it. Now, I'm not saying I've never gotten to a point where, from a respiratory standpoint, so like if you have laryngitis that's brought on by a respiratory illness, don't sing through that. I'm not suggesting that you do that. I'm predominantly talking about, sinusitis or sinus infection or typical colds and flus. I'm not talking about laryngitis, and upper respiratory issues can certainly be very challenging, okay? So, what are the symptoms of vocal cord lesions? And so I want to go, there are a few the Mayo Clinic has put up and some other things like that. I want to share with you a couple things about when people go hoarse, what they do is they freak out. So vocal cord lesions can result in hoarseness, breathiness, multiple tones, where you have like kind of 3 tones going on, loss of vocal range, vocal fatigue, or complete loss of voice. Now, people with vocal cord nodules or polyps may describe their voice as harsh, raspy, scratchy. They may have frequent vocal breaks, right? And fatigue easily with the use. And this is people that don't work their voice out. So there's a difference. So if you've stayed strong and you're strong in your vocal folds, then you should be able to stay strong through this and recover really quickly, depending on what your issue may or may not be. But anyway, so decrease in range of vocal sounds. Pain is another symptom. It's felt like a shooting pain from ear to ear, and some people will kind of feel the sensation. It kind of goes down into the throat and down the back of their neck, or general neck pain, like a lump in the throat. Other people may also experience frequent coughing, throat clearing, or general fatigue itself. But I want to get into the different people that have had vocal surgeries recently, and was it necessary? And well, I'm going to start with Adele because she's notorious, and she had a vocal hemorrhage, and she canceled the tour, and she's had 2 surgeries now. Now, she had a surgery by a very, very famous, well-known otolaryngologist, Stephen Zeitels, and if Bob has posted the page here, I'm going to post his thing up here. And I've got Gupta on here too. She's the vocal doctor from Los Angeles, and I've worked with her with a lot of different clients as well. But Adele, come on, let's be real about this. She smokes like a chimney, and she drinks like a fish. Well, that's a recipe for disaster. And I'm not saying you can't do it, and I'm not saying other rock and roll guys haven't done it, but if you're going to do that, then you can't. And she even attributes her vocal tone as, because I smoke and drink. Well, okay, let's see how long that career will last after now 2 surgeries. How many times can you cut the cord? How many times can you take a laser to your vocal folds to have someone else fix you and give you your voice back? So let's be responsible. Let's really think about what we're doing here. Let's eat healthy and do some healthy things to keep us on track for good vocal health. Julie Andrews was a bummer. We all love the sound of music. She had a botched surgery. What a drag. Yeah, she oversang. In theater, again, there's not a huge emphasis on diaphragmatic support, on the constriction of air, and et cetera, et cetera. So she had an issue, and then she had a surgeon that just didn't do a great job. What a bummer. She lost her vocal career as a result of it. Björk, same thing. She she had vocal nodules, but she spent 3 years doing special vocal exercises to avoid surgery, which is pretty cool. You could have done it in 6 months. She didn't have to go spend 3 years to do that, and there's reasons for that. Mariah Carey, vocal nodules, she's still struggling with that. That's another subject because we could talk about the flageolet whistle register and some of the different things she did with her voice, which used a lot of air and actually inflated the folds themselves and possibly could have hemorrhaged also with a blood vessel in the vocal folds. But Roger Daltry, The Who, you know, he had a precancerous growth. Well, again, bands in the 70s did a lot of drugs and did a lot of stuff, you know, and I'm not condoning that. I'm just saying if we make healthy choices, you know, we could avoid a lot of this stuff. Natalie Dessay, for example, vocal nodule, she had surgery. Celine Dion, you know, weakness in the vocal cords due to a viral illness. Now, let's talk about that. I'm going to give you an example here recently. So in my family, as you know, we got displaced in Hawaii from the lava, and I lost 4 properties. Yep, you heard me right. 3 houses and another piece of land we were ready to build on for some ocean view property that we were going to turn into rental properties. And they all got eaten up by lava. When we went to California, which is where I'm from, we actually went to visit my daughter who actually has some health issues. And we got caught in the fires that were there. Remember the Santa Barbara fires? If you saw them in the news, they're big news. And we literally were just inundated with crazy amounts of smoke. And I don't do well with smoke. In fact, when I would tour, you know how they have the linseed oil things that they would use to put smoke in a room so the lights look cool? I would make them turn it off and say, hey, you know, I'll get through the night without that stuff because I didn't fare well with that. Anyway, but I got a really, really nasty respiratory infection as a direct result of it. And it took me a very long time to recover. So it was a viral illness that I got, or maybe even a bacterial illness, or both. And I've been susceptible. For those of you guys that know me, maybe you could take a look at my stomach. I had my spleen removed when I was 12 due to a rocket that hit me in the stomach. So the spleen actually filters blood, and it's one of the biggest things that helps with the immune function in the body. So I've had to take special care of myself to not get, you know, and I've had pneumonia now 3 times, so I've got to really, really be careful of that. And so I can understand how Celine had to go through this viral illness and then recover from that. But anyway, Lesley Feist, and for all of you people, some of you people don't even know who these people are, but she had vocal cord damage. She took a 6-month hiatus off, and then she actually changed her singing style for a lower register. Whitney Houston, also vocal nodules. We know that really well. We know Elton John had vocal nodules, had surgery, and after the surgery, it was noticeable how deep his range went. Well, that didn't need to happen because we can maintain that range. Just because someone goes in and cuts the cord or shaves something off doesn't mean we can't actually rehabilitate the voice. So I'm not sure who worked with Elton, but I do know that it's doable. Shirley Manson from Garbage, same thing, vocal nodules. Rod Stewart, Josh Stone, John Mayer. You know, in fact, he has something called granuloma. Is something that happens. A lot of people that tour are susceptible to a lot of different things, and they're performing night after night after night after night after night after night, and they don't give themselves a chance to relax or rest. So granuloma is something that happens when you beat yourself up. It doesn't mean that there was any specific point in time where you screamed at a football game and lost your voice. It means that you never gave yourself a chance to rest and recuperate. So he found himself in a pickle and is still to this day having issues. Freddie Mercury, vocal nodules. You know, Frank Ocean, you know, same thing. Pavarotti. You know, he had a vocal nodule, but he decided to give up singing as a result. But when he actually recovered, he took, I think, a year sabbatical, if I'm not mistaken, for vocal rest, and he recovered. Frank Sinatra, Meghan Trainor, you know, it's all about that bass, You know, she's had, I think, 2 hemorrhages now. She's, you know, she's not doing this correctly. Paul Stanley from Kiss, you know, Rod Stewart, I think I mentioned him already. Justin Timberlake, Steven Tyler from Aerosmith, he burst a blood vessel. Keith Urban, you'd think a country guy, that you wouldn't do that, but yes, it can happen to all of us. Now, I want to do a couple quick additional mentions, which is Beyonce. Dehydration can also play a huge role in this. So please make sure that you guys just drink a lot of filtered water. Stevie Nicks, same thing, she has a deviated septum. So that was attributed to some of the issues that she's had. But she's also lived a super rock and roll style lifestyle. So, but I want to talk about Steven Zeitels as an otolaryngologist. And I'm gonna, Bob, if my associate's here, or at some point soon, I'll post this up in the description. He's the one that did Steven Tyler's surgery. He did Lionel Richie's surgery. I think he did Sam Smith's surgery. He did Adele's surgery. All these different people. He's called the Messiah. I use that with a small m. The guy that has given a lot of these singers their voice back. Reena Gupta, great gal, worked really closely with her, down to earth, super smart, great equipment. She's in the greater Los Angeles area. She's called, the vocal doctor, or Dr. Voice or something. Anyway, can't recommend her more highly. Zeitels is maybe at a league above her just because he's had a lot more experience in surgery. But I want to recap, and I want to open this up for questions because I don't want to just have this big, monologue from me to you. But I want to talk about different signs. So first of all, we're going to vocal nodules and polyps. We've discussed what they are. A polyp, it can be on both sides of the folds. Usually a nodule is on one side of the fold. It's inside your larynx, inside the voice box. Can be treated through therapy, vocal therapy. Do not have to go straight to surgery. That's crazy. And rehabilitation. And the very last resort is surgery. Polyps can be on both sides of the vocal folds, and they look kind of like a swollen spot or a lump, like a blister, or like a thin kind of growth, etc. But let's talk about signs of vocal folds. So hoarseness, breathiness, a rough voice, a scratchy voice, a harsh sounding voice. Hey, how you doing? Okay, pretty good. A shooting pain from ear to ear, feeling like you have a lump in your throat. Neck pain could be in the back or particularly in the front right here. Less ability to change your pitch, to go from one note value to another. Voice and body tiredness, like your voice is tired and your body just feels kind of tired. A good way to determine is if you have a polyp or a note is when you go to sing a scale, does it happen at a certain point or a certain note value within the scale itself, or is it just the voice all completely gone in general? So go to your local ENT or otolaryngologist, get strobed. Vocal abuse can happen from allergies, smoking, muscle tenseness or tense muscles, over singing, coaching, cheerleading, talking loudly, drinking caffeine, which dries us out big time, or alcohol. Both of the things that dry us out considerably. Now, we have some things I have a video out about vocal nodules. Check it out. We talk about glutathione treatments. We talk about collagen types 2 and 3 treatments. We talk about good inhalers or good things that will put moisture back in the folds. These are all things that can help us with good vocal health exercises and things that we do. So this becomes really important because we don't want to go straight to surgery. We want to really try to get a speech pathologist or someone like myself or whomever to help you work through those issues and to give yourself grace and have enough time to be able to pull this off and do this without surgery. Now, by the way, I have had a lot of students that have had surgery. Doesn't mean it's the end of the world. It just means it's a bummer. It takes longer to come back. But what it does mean is that once you've had surgery, we can't go right back into just hitting it hard and getting back game shape right away. It can take months. So with that said, we have some on-topic questions. Costa Rica, Elton John, pretty good example of vocal polyp. Can you tell us how to prevent this? Yeah. In my course called How to Sing Better Than Anyone Else, we discussed the bright ping of the sound. I guess that's why they call it the blues. Time on your hands. Now think about this. Elton sits and plays piano, and he loses up to 30% of his abdominal support when he sings. So he's already at a huge disadvantage for a lot of strain to go to the throat. So between that and not having a good open throat technique, and look at my video on open throat technique, again, it's in my course, where we have to maintain a good muscle structure that can open up these sounds and not overuse air. And I know he's had other issues, health issues in his life too, and I don't want to get into all that, but that is a good explanation for that. Juan Salas Dura. When I sing, minutes later my throat gets angry with me. Well, then it means you're not singing right. Go into my singers forums, post something of you singing, and we'll share with you what we think is the best approach for that. But without me hearing it, I can't, again, judge this from afar. It's very irresponsible of me to do that. John, when I was 13 years old, I got the love of music by listening to Janis Joplin. And I was screaming like her almost all the time. And I got nodules, just by overuse and bad air usage. Yeah, okay, so let's talk about that too. When you're 13, usually in younger ages can recover a lot faster because you're more resilient, so your body can recover quicker. So I don't know if you still, how old you are now and if you still have that issue, but you can recover a lot quicker when you're younger. But that happens to a lot of people that emulate people that have distorted, raspy voices. So it's the reason, actually not one of the reasons, that I don't go straight into talking about scream and growl and all these different things, because you need to develop first a natural whiskey sort of sound like Aretha or even Ronnie James Dio or whoever your favorite singer is. First, in order to be able to bring in that sound, you don't go straight to that sound because you probably will destroy your voice. Furious Phil. Phil, my moderator, my man, how you doing, buddy? Thank you, by the way, Phil, for everything that you do. Since Phil's one of the moderators on our forum, so I'm really grateful for his help. I'm fighting the resultant respiratory issues from the wildfires. You and me both. Okay, cool. The next province over. It's really taking a toll on my range, but the KTV training is keeping me vocally level. Yeah. So hey, Phil. That's exactly what happened to me. Also, I've never experienced what I experienced I'm 53, I'm going to be 54 this year. I've never experienced that kind of vocal fatigue for as long as I had to experience it. Just hydrate the crap out of yourself. I mean, I'm not kidding. Even take, drink a lot of coconut water and different things that will keep your body hydrated. And then actually, in this specific case, don't oversing until you get out of the fires, if the air gets clean, and get your respiratory system to be nice and clean first before you start to really push the envelope on your range and your power and the not resiliency, but the what's the word I'm looking for? 2 words, sounds like whatever, loudness is what I was going to say. Resonance, that's what I meant to say. The resonance in your voice. So, but anyway, if you have trouble, Phil, let me know, because there's some other things that I've done too, inhalers and using grapeseed extract. I'm using, all kinds of things. I don't do it now, but I have. I got a Viridian inhaler, and I started putting, tea tree oil and like different things in it to help retain moisture in the cords themselves. And then I felt myself kind of gacking up all this stuff constantly, which is, again, irritating the vocal folds. So hit me up, dude, if you need help on that. I'm happy to do that. Wyatt Birdwell, what about Paul Stanley? A lot of overuse. He doesn't even drink, doesn't smoke. Just bad, say bad singing. He's Kiss. I'm Ken Tamplin. Street singing for a long time. Now, my own cousin Sammy Hagar, he's been able to get away with it for a really long time. Yeah, he's lost his voice a few times, but, David Coverdale lost his voice completely. Street singing, almost all the guys from this, 70s, 80s, 90s have lost their voice from that kind of singing. Just good vocal health. I cover that in my singing course, how to sing better than anyone else. Tim, have you tried neti pot? Yeah, so neti pots are cool, and they work good for infections, bronchitis and stuff. By the way, be careful of that, because they can actually store infection. Also, make sure you're using, filtered water and, whatever. But yeah, neti pots are great. Like I said, humidifiers are good. Sleep with a humidifier at night. But absolutely, neti. In fact, again, I have a whole thing on nasality and all kinds of stuff. And look on YouTube, and you'll see a whole diet, exercise. We really want to try to have a plant-based, diet if we can, as much as we can. Stay away from dairy as much as we can. Stay away from things that are going to create mucus on the cords and have them just sit there in the gack. And sinusitis is a postnasal drip, just constantly drips on the cords. Not a good thing. Marcus Cameron, Ken, is dairy substitute better for the voice than real dairy? Absolutely. Yes, it is. Does it taste as good? Well, you grow to get used to it. Personally, I don't mind having myself a piece of pizza once in a while. It kind of makes me sick, the gluten and the cheese. but I predominantly do try to err on the good side of using dairy substitutes because they can absolutely affect, and it also infects your stomach. You know, all of the flora in your stomach doesn't love it, and so it starts to create a cauldron of a mess of mucus that gets an acid reflux that gets thrown up and through the esophagus. So Sean Clements, would you have a deviated septum effect for vocal resonance? Would sinus or congestion issues as well? I'm planning on going for surgery to correct for health reasons. Would it help my voice too? Well, that's a really tough question because it depends on how bad the deviated septum is. Barbara Streisand, for example, chose not to have the surgery because it was strongly recommended to her by several great otolaryngologists that said it could absolutely, definitely affect your vocal issue or your voice. So she chose not to do it. She's fared well, but again, if it's more of a health issue, let's get you healthy and we'll figure your voice out after the fact. And I hate to put it in those terms, but talk to your vocal practitioner. He'll your health practitioner, they would better answer that question knowing your specific case. Felice Spears, can you rehab back and increase your range after surgery? Yes, I do it all the time. I've got students, that I've told. By the way, I have students. I have them at lots of levels, and I have a lot of them that tour. And we'll go through these sessions and we'll work up all this stuff, and I'll get them in really good game shape, and then they just go back out into battle doing the same old bad habits, and then they come back and I bandage them back up and I send them back out about because they think they're above the law. No one's above the law. When you get surgery, you have to go, what did I do to get myself in this predicament, and how can I not do this again? And there is a very specific way to do this. I cover this in my singing course, where you have to incrementally go through certain stages and ways of growing muscle memory and strength and resiliency, like we discussed, and resonance and so forth, in order to be able to create and maintain good vocal health. Sean, I've had vocal nodules, but I burst a vocal fold 2 years ago, and my voice hasn't been the same ever since. I can sing, but my voice gets tired very quickly. I think I also messed up a neck muscle. Sean, man, that's unfortunately, you'd have to come to me for an actual session for me to hear you. It's not even something you can post in my forums, because that's actually pretty serious. And it depends on what part of the neck. In fact, I've even posted in my singing forums how the makeup structure of the neck and the folds and where all the muscle structures are. We need to determine what muscle structure is causing this. We need to understand how bad was the burst. Did you get surgery? You didn't say. Did you get? It says I've had vocal nodules and bursted 2 years ago. Who did the surgery? What did the strobe look like before and after, like 3 or 4 months later? Urbano, do you think the constant tours without resting could be the reason for Bono's last fail? Well, it doesn't have to be that way. Bono has never been a technical singer, and he's always used a glut of air. So, but he somehow seemed to pull it out all the time. I'm not sure how. And his age plays a role in that too. I know he's not a big drinker and he doesn't do a bunch of drugs. So, but yeah, I mean, again, if you're touring for a lot of years and you don't understand how to take good care of your voice, of course that could be the reason. And I hope that he gets back on track soon. Okay, I'm going to move into some off-topic questions because we have just a few minutes left. Linda Komezchi, I do karaoke at every chance I get, but I still feel like I'm missing on my voice. Help. Post in our singing forums. We'll help you out. Check out my singing course. Go through my YouTube videos. It will really help you a lot. So, Linda, I've got 400 videos out, so check out through some of the stuff I have. It'll really help you. And Kita, how can I find my own voice? Okay, I have a video. I have 3 actually videos out on that. But I'm going to give you 2 quick, fast answers for those that, by the way, I hope I'm not boring some of the people that have to hear this twice. When we get influences from other singers, whoever your favorite singer is, and it could be Jennifer Hudson, it could be, I don't know, whomever, right? Some hard rock guy, both ends of the spectrum, or a pop guy, it could be Justin Bieber, I don't care. When we get influences, what we do is we take the toolbox of what we learned from our influences and we represent them, not represent, we represent those influences with our own inflection and style, etc. But one of the best things you can do, and you're going to say, but I'm not a songwriter, how do I do that? One of the best things you can do is try to write your own song or collaborate with someone that can help you so that you're not, whenever you're thinking of a melody or you're thinking of a song that you like or an artist that you like, you're not gravitating towards mimicking them or miming them, but is something that's so original and unique, and I don't mean original for the sake of just doing something weird, I just mean a good melody or something that you've never heard before, and then you could internalize your influences and represent that in something original, and when you do that, that's one of the fastest ways to get to you're finding your own true voice yourself. Yvette, how can I get more freedom used to be higher, now struggling and cracking? Okay, so again, I cover that in my singing course. There's a series of exercises you have to go through and build muscle memory. Open throat technique, good diaphragmatic support, strength within the vowels themselves, good vowel modifications. I have videos on that if you can't afford the course, or if you want to get the course, man, I cover that crazy extensively. Sharon, please do a stream or video on women, pregnancy, and menopause. I will, and that's coming. I have thought about doing that. Thank you, Sharon. I know it's now a woman. Hormonal changes matter big time. Women that are pregnant, depending also in the term of the pregnancy, have a very challenging time with true diaphragmatic support because they're already having this giant thing in their stomach, and now you're being told, hey, I want you to exhale out, protrude your stomach even more, and pull it in here and do all this stuff. So I will do that. I don't know when I can get to that, Sharon, but I'll do my best to do that just for you ladies out there. Tony M, he's back. If you have sinus issues, how do you know when you should see a doctor? I've had sinus problems my whole life. It hasn't gotten worse, but some days I can't sing head voice because, I'm so congested. That's because, again, of the postnasal drip that drips on the cords. It's not a bad idea to see a doctor, but doctors a lot of times are just going to prescribe a lot of antibiotics and a lot of things that are going to tear down your immune system. By the way, first rule of thumb, and I say this as a disclaimer, always go see a licensed healthcare practitioner. I am not that for you. I'm talking only from personal experience. But I have, if you look on my video that I have, Tony, I hope you've seen it. I talk about sinuses and I hold up some ginger and talk about garlic and colloidal silver and echinacea and golden seal and grapeseed extract and all these different things that you can do. If you've tried those things and they haven't worked, please post in our forums and I'll try to get you more in-depth information to help you with that. We're coming down to a close here, guys, and I won't be able to get to all these, so I'm going to have to save some of these for later. Samuel from Northeast India. I tried so hard in singing every day when I have the time. I took the guitar and sing a song, but I listen back to my voice. I don't like it. Well, I went through that too. Like I told you guys before, early on when I was trying to learn how to sing, I had 2 cassette recorders and I'd sing into one and then I'd play guitar into another. It was like, or actually I'd play guitar first, sing a Zeppelin song, and then try to sing Stairway to Heaven or something. And it was bloody awful. And it's something that we work on. Sometimes we get in the mirror and go, it's a bad hair day, it's a bad voice day. So, but let's make sure that we're consistent enough with our vocals and we grow them in such a way that even our 80% of a bad day is better than most people's 100%. I'm just going to do one more. Ashwin, I'm a high Barry. I sing from a G2 and get a little uncomfortable when I sing an A4. Is it dangerous for me to sing in styles like Harry Styles? If you're doing it wrong, yes. It is. It is dangerous. Can you at least go through some of the exercises I have on YouTube and watch and see how we grow that? Because I too, when I was younger, had a tough time singing A4s all the time, but now I can sing way beyond that. but I have to stay in shape and I have to do this stuff correctly. And again, I cover all this in my singing course, How to Sing Better Than Anyone Else. If you guys want to check it out, it's at kentamplinvocalacademy.com. I promise you guys, it's golden information. And you hear me share all this stuff, and hopefully this is helping you guys, and I'm doing my best to give you my all to help you guys with your end game, and that's how to sing great. So a couple of shout outs. We're gonna we have some people I didn't get to get on the front side here. We have Robert Colmahoe from Buford, Georgia. Hey, Robert. Cafito Gonzalez, Santiago, Chile. Rafael from Brazil. German from Argentina. Punik from India. Sharon from France. Gilberto from Brazil. Bissur from India. Yvette from Sacramento. Another John Punta from Arenas, Chile. Lots of people, guys. Anyway, thank you for joining me. Ken Tamplin Vocal Academy, where the proof is in the singing. You won't see me this Saturday. I'll be traveling back to the States because I'm leaving Mexico. But I will try to do my best to continue with these. So expect to see me either a week from today or that following Saturday, and I'll let you know what the next subject will be. All right? God bless you guys. Peace out.